Odu Oyeku Meji,
the Avenger of Death.
This Odu stands as one of the 16 principal Odu and the second Odu in the sacred Ifa divination system. As a twin Odu, one where the same pattern appears on both sides during divination, it carries profound spiritual authority and represents perfect balance in dualities. This Odu speaks directly to matters of life and death, transformation and renewal, and the eternal struggle between mortality and immortality. This powerful Odu teaches that death is not an inevitability to be passively accepted, but a force that can be negotiated with through proper spiritual practice. The divinations within this Odu reveal how sacrifice, transformation, and spiritual wisdom combine to ensure longevity and protect against sudden death. Through the stories of a man and a woman, we learn that compliance with Ifa's prescriptions transforms potential tragedy into blessing and apparent endings into new beginnings. Understanding the threat of sudden death. One of the divination in this Odu addresses one of humanity's deepest fears, the possibility of sudden, premature death. If this Odu appears during divination, Ifa reveals that this person is at risk of unexpected death, yet simultaneously provides the spiritual solution to avert this fate. This duality reflects the essence of the Odu itself. Darkness and light, death and life, danger and salvation exist together, and the choice between them depends on spiritual action. The Odu receives the title, the one who would be regarded as the Avenger of Death. This powerful designation suggests that through proper sacrifice and spiritual compliance, one does not merely avoid death, but actively conquers it, becoming an agent of life and longevity. The title indicates that the person who successfully performs the prescribed sacrifice transforms from potential victim to spiritual victor. The dawn of new life. The verse opens with a profound image. The people thought it was a new dawn. This metaphor establishes the fundamental teaching of this Odu regarding cycles, renewal, and transformation. Just as dawn inevitably follows the darkest part of night, life and renewal can follow even the direst spiritual circumstances when proper sacrifice is made. The association with dawn also suggests awakening, awareness, and the revelation of truth. What appears as darkness, certain death, contains within it the seeds of light and new beginning. This teaches that even when faced with death predictions or spiritual danger, the situation contains the potential for transformation and new life through Ifa's guidance. The verse goes like this. The people thought it was a new dawn. This was the Ifa divination for the one who averts death. The one who would be regarded as the Avenger of Death. He was advised to offer sacrifice, and he complied. Thus, what will drive sudden death away from the priest? The Odu is the Ifa divination that will deliver the priest from sudden death. The power of this Odu. The verse concludes with a powerful invocation of the Odu itself. The question, what will drive sudden death away from the priest, is answered by calling upon the authority of this Odu. The message conveyed is, it is this Odu of Ifa that removes death from the head of the priest. This creates a self-referential spiritual loop in which the Odu does not merely identify the danger, but also provides the remedy. In this way, the knowledge revealed by this Odu becomes the medicine for the very condition it diagnoses. The teaching is clear. When the wisdom contained in this Odu is properly understood and correctly applied through the required sacrifices and disciplines, it becomes protection against the dangers it warns about. A priest who truly masters this Odu and faithfully follows its prescriptions gains safety through the Odu's own spiritual authority. This illustrates how Ifa operates as a complete and self-sustaining system of knowledge, one that reveals, instructs, and protects through its own internal wisdom. Prescribed offerings, sacrifice. For protection against sudden death and to ensure longevity, the Odu prescribes specific offerings. These offerings are symbolic actions designed to realign spiritual balance and preserve life. The prescribed items include a goat, which functions as a spiritual substitute for the individual, standing in their place within the unseen realm. Palm oil represents the smooth and uninterrupted flow of life force and the ability to move safely through spiritual challenges. Fermented corn pudding symbolizes nourishment, stability, and the foundational support of life itself. Kola nut represents openness, spiritual access, and clear communication with higher forces. Money acknowledges the material dimension of sacrifice and completes the offering by affirming commitment and seriousness of intent. Together, these elements form a complete act of spiritual compliance rather than a symbolic gesture. The imperative of sacrifice. The verse makes a firm declaration: sacrifice must always be carried out correctly. This is not presented as optional advice, but as a spiritual law. The avoidance of death in this teaching did not occur simply because knowledge was received, but because the required sacrifice was fully performed. Compliance, not awareness, alone is what transforms danger into protection. Knowledge identifies the solution, but action activates it. This Odu teaches that spiritual instructions only produce results when they are obeyed precisely and without delay. Practical application in modern times. In contemporary life, this divination speaks to anyone confronting serious illness, life-threatening situations, or forewarnings of harm. While modern medicine and practical interventions are valuable and necessary, this Odu teaches that spiritual preparation must accompany physical action. The message is not to abandon practical solutions, but to recognize that preservation of life requires alignment on both visible and invisible levels. Through correct sacrifice and disciplined spiritual response, danger is reduced, life is extended, and stability is restored. This demonstrates how the Odu functions as a complete system, revealing danger, prescribing action, and ensuring protection when its guidance is followed. The wisdom of transformation. The journey from heaven to earth. This divination addresses a metaphorical woman as cloth, representing the numbers of dressing or the elements of clothing on the day they were descending from heaven to earth. This cosmological framing establishes that the wisdom contained in this verse predates human existence and represents eternal spiritual principles. Clothing, as a metaphor, represents how we present ourselves, adapt to circumstances, and undergo transformation throughout life. The journey from heaven to earth signifies the transition from pure spiritual essence to physical manifestation. Just as clothing must be appropriate for different situations and must be changed when worn or soiled, so too must humans be willing to transform, adapt, and renew themselves throughout their earthly journey. The power of threefold unity. If this divination appears to anyone during divination, it specifically addresses 3 children of the same mother. The emphasis on maternal connection highlights the spiritual significance of shared blood and shared destiny. In Yoruba cosmology, children of the same mother share not only biological ties, but spiritual connections that can affect each other's fortunes. The instruction that all 3 must offer sacrifice together creates a powerful spiritual synergy. Individual sacrifice has power, but collective sacrifice by blood relatives multiplies that power. This teaches the importance of family unity in spiritual matters, and the responsibility siblings bear for each other's well-being and longevity. Listen to the sacred verse about this divination. It is the great staff that advances with every step. It is the 2 legs that make movements on the path. This was the Ifa divination for the numbers of dressing. On the day they were coming from heaven, they were advised to offer sacrifice, and they complied. Thus, it was head Tai who offered the sacrifice. Therefore, it is the clothing that understands the offering of sacrifice that do not become useless. When you are about to become useless, change your path. Clothing that understands sacrifice does not become worn out. The metaphor of staff and legs. The opening lines present complementary images. It is the great staff that advances with every step. It is the two legs that make movements on the path. The staff represents spiritual guidance, wisdom, and support the vertical connection to divine knowledge. The two legs represent practical action, physical movement, and the horizontal journey through earthly life. Together, these images teach that spiritual progress requires both divine guidance, the staff, and human action, the legs. Neither alone is sufficient. This balance between spiritual preparation and practical engagement characterizes the wisdom of this Odu called the Avenger of Death and reflects the dual nature of the Odu itself. The transformative power of clothing. The central teaching of this divination uses clothing as a profound metaphor for transformation and renewal. The verse states, "Clothing that understands sacrifice does not become useless. When it is about to become useless, it changes its path. Clothing that understands sacrifice does not become worn out." This teaches that when we recognize the need for transformation and are willing to make the necessary sacrifices, we prevent ourselves from becoming spiritually obsolete or ineffective. Just as wise people change their clothes when they become dirty or worn, spiritually aware individuals transform their approaches, attitudes, and behaviors when these no longer serve life's purpose. The three sacred colors. The prescription of three colors of cloth, black, red, and white, represents the full spectrum of existence and the completeness of transformation. Black symbolizes depth, mystery, wisdom, and the unknown, the fertile darkness from which all emerges. Red represents vitality, passion, life force, and the courage to act. White signifies purity, clarity, spiritual illumination, and the refined essence of being. Together, these three colors demonstrate that longevity and spiritual success require embracing all aspects of existence. We cannot achieve wholeness by accepting only the light and rejecting the darkness, or by embracing only passion while avoiding purity. Complete spiritual transformation requires integrating all dimensions of being. Prescribed offerings. The sacrifice prescribed for the clothes includes black clothing, red clothing, white clothing, a goat, fermented corn pudding, palm oil, and kola nut. The clothing represents the willingness to transform across all dimensions of being, while the other items ensure the spiritual efficacy of the offering and provide sustenance for the journey of transformation. Practical application for modern times. In contemporary life, this divination speaks powerfully to anyone feeling stuck in patterns that no longer serve them. The teaching that, when you are about to become useless, change your path, applies to careers that have become stagnant, relationships that have become toxic, habits that have become destructive, and beliefs that have become limiting. The Avenger of Death teaches that transformation is not failure, but wisdom, and that the willingness to change is what ensures continued vitality and relevance throughout life. Spiritual wisdom and practices. The philosophy of duality and balance. As a twin Odu, it embodies the principle of perfect duality. The same pattern appearing on both sides of the divination chain represents balance, mirroring, and the integration of opposites. This Odu teaches that life and death, darkness and light, ending and beginning are not separate opposing forces, but complementary aspects of a unified whole. Understanding this duality helps practitioners navigate life's challenges with wisdom. When facing apparent endings or losses, the Odu teaches us to recognize the seeds of new beginnings contained within. When experiencing darkness or difficulty, this Odu reminds us that dawn inevitably follows night. This philosophical foundation provides emotional resilience and spiritual perspective during challenging times. The principle of timely sacrifice. The divination verses within this Odu emphasize immediate compliance with sacrificial prescriptions. The phrase, "he complied and offered sacrifice," appears in both verses we've discussed about in this Odu, highlighting that the effectiveness of Ifa's guidance depends not just on knowledge but on timely action. Postponement or procrastination in spiritual matters can allow the very dangers Ifa warns about to manifest. This teaches that spiritual practice requires discipline and immediate response. When Ifa prescribes sacrifice, delay diminishes effectiveness. The power of sacrifice lies partly in the demonstration of faith through immediate action, showing trust in divine guidance even before results are visible. For deeper understanding of sacrifice in African religious traditions, check out a video on our channel where we discussed about ancient African sacrifices and rituals. Family unity in spiritual practice. The instruction that 3 siblings must offer sacrifice together reveals important principles about family spiritual bonds. In Yoruba cosmology, children of the same mother share spiritual connections that transcend individual destinies. What affects one can influence all, and what all do together creates amplified spiritual power. This teaching extends beyond biological family to spiritual families and communities. When groups unite in proper spiritual practice, they create protective fields that benefit all members. The modern application includes families praying together, communities supporting each other spiritually, and groups collectively addressing shared challenges through unified spiritual action. The role of the Ifa Priest. All sacrifices and spiritual preparations prescribed in this Odu should be performed under the guidance of a qualified Ifa Priest or Priestess. The priest or priestess serves as the intermediary who ensures proper procedures, invokes necessary incantations, and adapts traditional practices to modern contexts while maintaining their spiritual integrity. The priest's role is not merely ceremonial but essential to the spiritual efficacy of the work. Through years of training and initiation, the priests and priestesses develops the spiritual authority and knowledge necessary to activate the power of sacrifice. Attempting to perform these rituals without proper guidance can be ineffective or even spiritually dangerous. Transformation as spiritual necessity. The teaching that clothing must change its path when becoming useless applies to all aspects of spiritual and physical life. This Odu emphasizes that stagnation is spiritual death, while transformation is the secret of longevity. This requires honesty and self-assessment, recognizing when our approaches, attitudes, or behaviors have become ineffective and courage to embrace change. Transformation involves sacrifice, letting go of familiar patterns, comfortable identities, and established ways of being. Yet this Odu teaches that such sacrifice is not loss but renewal. Like the snake shedding its skin or the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis, transformation through sacrifice leads to new life and continued vitality. The integration of opposites. The prescription of 3 colors, black, red, white, in the clothes divination teaches that spiritual completeness requires integrating seemingly opposite qualities. We must embrace both darkness and light, passion and purity, the known and the unknown. Rejecting any aspect of existence creates imbalance and vulnerability. Modern practitioners can apply this teaching by accepting all aspects of their humanity, the shadow and the light, the weakness and the strength, the past and the potential. Wholeness comes not from perfection but from integration, not from denial but from acceptance and transformation of all that we are. Behavioral Guidelines from the Avenger of Deaths. This Odu provides several important behavioral guidelines for those who receive it in divination. One must be willing to make sacrifices promptly, without delay or procrastination. Family members should unite in spiritual practice rather than approaching challenges individually. Practitioners must be honest about when transformation is needed, rather than clinging to outdated patterns. Most importantly, one must maintain faith in the spiritual process, even when results are not immediately visible. These guidelines serve not as restrictions, but as protective wisdom. Following them creates the conditions under which Ifa's blessings can manifest fully, while ignoring them leaves one vulnerable to the very dangers the Odu warns against. If you found this enlightening, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and explore more teachings drawn from Ifa divination.